Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. Back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah.
It is Tuesday night, and it is time for the FPV news. The only news that's actually fun to listen to, because it's only good news. And when it's bad news, it's not all that big of a deal.
True, that is very true. The stakes are low.
The stakes are low. How you doing tonight, Blunty?
Good. How about you?
I'm very well.
I see your chat is I don't know what the word is, maybe concerned about Elden Ring?
Why? Do they? I don't know what that means.
I'm not sure.
I do like that game.
Elden Ring chatter.
A lot of chatter about Elden Ring. Well, it's a very good game. It's a very popular game. It's true.
Yeah.
You enjoy it. We played it together a little bit last Friday.
I
didn't
yeah.
live stream it or anything. Oh, whoops. Hang on. I have the wrong title. Hang on. There we go. Introduction. I actually didn't make the titles, Blunty. I'm going to be just barely ahead of us. We got PSAs. Anyway, that's not important. What is important? What is important is these beautiful people. Everything we do when we stream has to be in service of the viewers. It can never be self-serving. You can never, be just like, yeah, I'm just going to do my own thing. You got to figure out what they want, and you got to do it. And then they reward you with super chats, I guess is how it works, right?
Yeah.
Glad you guys are here.
That's what they say.
That's what they say. Sometimes they say, why the hell are you playing Elden Ring?
True.
Did I not rename this? Yeah, I did. Okay. Good. Thank you guys so much for being here. We'll take just a second to put you up on screen. Your comments, we'll be watching your comments, and of course, the beautiful, beautiful patrons, the most beautiful of people, here during the stream. But the point of this stream is this is not a Q&A stream, and no, it's not an Elden Ring stream either, as much as I might enjoy it if it was. It is a news stream. We're going to go through the news. They're disliking me retroactively, T418L. They want to, I privated that. I always private my gaming streams afterwards. They're a little treat or a punishment. They can't downvote that stream, so they want to downvote it. Let's get started, Blunty, though, with, we always like to start with public service announcements. And there is a PSA this week about a bug in Betaflight Configurator. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so basically, pretty simple. Essentially, if you've had trouble on, it looks like it's specifically 10.8, the release candidate configurators. RC3 was where it was identified, but presumably it's been there before. Maybe something changed to make it happen. But basically, if you try to enable bidirectional dshot, and then if you try to set the motor poles, both of those will not take. And they'll basically, when you save and reset, then they'll disappear and not get activated.
Well, now
the fix for that. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm confused. So I do want to hear the fix, obviously. Sorry to interrupt you. I have used bidirectional dshot before, no problem. But then I ran into this just the other day, and people have reported it to me, and I haven't been able to pin it down because if your flight controller supports bidirectional dshot, you enable that option, you hit save and reboot, and it works. But then so does it sometimes work and it sometimes doesn't work? And under what conditions doesn't it work?
I'm not sure. I just know that I've had a lot of user reports of it. I did see the bug get reported as well. It's happening on 10.8 RC3, which I confirmed on my own RC3 by taking a random flight controller off my desk, plugging it in, and it had the same exact bug. I was able to experience it on the first flight controller I tried, and would not let me activate. And when I tried to activate bidirectional dshot, there was a blanked out spot where you enter the motor poles. So no matter what you do there, even setting into the CLI did not work. It would not take. And then
so what's the fix?
When the fix was downloading the nightly configurator. And when I did the nightly configurator, it was able to do it no problem. As soon as I loaded it up, it showed me that motor pole count as soon as I hit bidirectional dshot, and it seemed to work no problem. So
interesting. Oh, and Sandra Dubronner seems to be the one who reported this. A very
and then we got one from Martin as well.
Martin TNT.
Yeah.
Several people reporting it. So the fix currently would be to download the nightly build of the configurator, which if you're running into that bugs, I mean, you really want to be able to use bidirectional dshot. So I guess you would do that. But then again, downloading a nightly configurator is kind of risky. So I guess it's
I would say you're already running release candidate configurators, so I'm not going to say
that's
it's that
true.
big of a step, personally.
An RC3 is probably a nightly of an RC3 is probably not much worse. They're pretty close to done, I suppose.
Yeah, because you're going to get some bug fixes over that RC, but you're also going to get maybe some changes because it's a nightly. So obviously you got to do it at your own discretion, but in these recent cases, it is a problem. So RC Ritter says use 14-pole motors. It does not work with 14-pole motors. That's what I'm saying. No matter how many poles your motor has, if you turn it on, you cannot change it. It's blanked out. It does not say 14. That's the bug. So and you cannot set it in the CLI.
You'd think it was a configurator bug, but if you can't set it in the CLI either, then it's more than just a configurator bug, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It may be because of how the configurator is passing that CLI information or something. I don't know enough about it, right? So,
yeah, okay.
I just know it's fixed. So.
All right. Luis Tosado wants to know what is bidirectional dshot. So I can't resist answering questions from the chat no matter what I do. Bidirectional dshot means that the ESC sends RPM information back to the flight controller, which lets the flight controller be smarter about its filters. Okay, so if you're running into that, the life of a release candidate, I suppose, and we will just, keep at it. Betaflight 4.3, releasing soon.
Yep, and I made a video. We explained it already, but I did make a video too. That's linked in the description.
Well, I don't. Yeah, we should show that video. I mean, come on.
There is currently a bug in Betaflight Configurator RC3.
Yeah, so that's linked down in the show notes in the video description if you want to check that out. Okay.
Cool.
Where am I going here? Next up, SpeedyBee says ESC is fixed. Should we give them some history about, like, we've covered this issue before, but people still may not have heard of it.
Yeah, so basically, the SpeedyBee released the V2 of their ESC, which wasn't really labeled very much. It was just like, hey, in the stack, basically this V2 ESC is starting to ship, and the V2 and the V2.1 ESC were bugged basically, and for some reason, basically on the shipping version, it seems because of the parts changes they made on that V2 and V2.1. It was not compatible properly with BL Heli, and there were a couple different things happening. The main issue was that whenever you use the beeper, it caused the ESC to not work properly, basically. There was an issue that would cause miscommunication with the ESC. And then if you flash to a test firmware that they were sending out, it would basically cook the ESC.
Well, now,
and then it would...
correct me if I'm wrong, but people were frying their ESC before then, weren't they? That ESC
sort of, but I don't know that there was any way to lock those down. Like the big thing I saw was guaranteed it was basically frying as soon as you flash that tester firmware that they were sending people. Yeah. However, they said that they now have a new test firmware that is supposed to fix this. So they say,
and my reaction was, oh, good, yeah, like the last one, but they swear they mean it this time.
Yeah, they said they've had a lot of people testing. Over 30 beta testers to confirm that they think that, this is all working properly. They are building a new V2.2 ESC where they'll use F4 MCUs like they would expect, and it has no bugs. They'll make sure they're testing it and making sure everything's proper. So basically they said the next mass production batch will be available at the last of this month, and then it'll be the V2.2 from then on. So.
Yeah, this is unfortunately a consequence of the component shortage and other difficulties of manufacturing and logistics in 2022. The only reason that they're using this processor is difficulties in sourcing and expense in sourcing the processors that they normally would use. So sad that it hit them this way, but hopefully they've actually fixed it. Personally, I told people just stop using the CSC until they sort it out, which is, I guess, then how are they going to know if they fixed it? But if you do have the CSC and you're willing to give it a go, we'd be interested to hear if it worked for you. And if it didn't work for you, we'd be especially interested to hear because, of course, not that it sounds like I'm just looking for gratuitous bad news. No. But like if you give it to 100 people and, 5 of them it still fries, that's more interesting than if you give it to 100 people and, well, if none of it fries, you see what I mean? We're not going to get a sample is my point. So I want to know if we don't hear from anybody for whom it fried, then that's good news. But if even a few people fry it, then it could be bad news.
RC Ritter says it works on 0.83. 0.83 was the same version that they did send out a tester of that was frying things. So presumably it's a different version of 8.3 with some new information.
The version number doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah, and apparently in this situation at least. And they are, 32.9 is supposed to be coming out fairly soon, in the next few weeks. And that will be like fully supported of that, and it won't be a beta firmware. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope that they have fixed it, and I hope that ESC can be trustable again. And
it is good to hear that they are moving to those F4 MCUs, going back to the standards. I know that we've seen quite a few issues with different ESCs trying to use these replacements. We talked about the ones not having the temperature sensing, and that's just like and I think those kind of little things will pop up on and off, especially if you're using different things that these MCUs that the BL32 team has not worked with. It seems to be where the issue comes in. So.
Exactly. The manufacturers are just trying to get whatever they can and then swap it out and hope that it works right, but that doesn't always pan out. Alrighty. Next up. DJI Action 2.
Oh, nope, this one.
Nope. Wait, why did I go to Title 4? Title 3? Title 4? Title 5? There you go. Sorry, guys. I'm a little loose on the titles today.
So, yeah. Go ahead.
ExpressLRS 2.3. A new release of ExpressLRS. I didn't make a video about it because I don't know. If I made a new video every time ExpressLRS released something major, I'd be making nothing but ExpressLRS videos. Sheesh.
Yeah.
What's new in
so,
ExpressLRS 2.3?
Well, so one of the reasons you might say, hey, this came out a few weeks ago, and you would be right, but the supporting software for it did not. So the big part of ExpressLRS 2.3 is the addition of the backpack for HDZero. So basically, we've talked a little bit before about the ELRS backpack and the ability to use the VTX and VRX control from your ELRS setup. However, now you can do that with HDZero, and so we were holding off until that firmware got uploaded. And so now that firmware is totally uploaded, and you can do this with full release firmware on everything. So
and this is really cool because the backpack function basically makes the HDZero module, the HDZero receiver, integrate with your controller and your flight controller and so forth through your control link, including things like, well, I mean, changing the band and channel with a Lua script. That's something that's been done before, but you can use an aux channel to stop the DVR on the HDZero receiver. That's pretty slick. And that's about it for now. But who knows what else could come in the future.
Yeah, pretty cool to see this going on. And I know they're going to be supporting this in the new VRX as well. So yeah, pretty cool to see.
And I believe that right now there is a little bit of a hoop you got to jump through connecting the ExpressLRS, because you have to connect an ExpressLRS receiver to your video receiver module. That's how the backpack function works. The ExpressLRS receiver is the backpack, and then it connects up and communicates with the rest of the system. And for now, I think that's a little bit fiddly soldering, but I believe this new ExpressLRS receiver that has been shown around, it's going to have more easy install, right?
Yeah, it'll be I believe it's gonna work out of the box a little bit easier. So
nice. Okay, well, always good to see the ExpressLRS team working with the HDZero team, two of my favorite projects in FPV.
Yeah,
for sure. Good people behind them.
Okay,
right. Next up, DJI Action 2. So DJI Action 2, I want to just riff on this for just a second before we get to the actual topic, because a lot of people, when I reviewed the DJI Action 2, I was a little bit hesitant on whether it would take over from GoPro as an action camera for freestyle, not just because of the video quality, but also because of the durability and the price. And since then, it seems like a few prominent pilots have definitely moved to it. Notably, Stinger Swarm and Phantom FPV both use it as their main camera, and they beat the shit out of their stuff. So I guess durability stands up. But there are still some issues with the DJI Action that, as Stingy said, no matter what other downsides it has, it saves you 100 grams compared to a GoPro. Hard to argue with that. But one of the issues that has been dealt with, or that people have run into, is heat buildup with it and potentially overheating. And that brings us to today's story. What is this potential fix, Blunty?
Yeah, so basically they released a magnetic case for the DJI Action 2. And interestingly enough, this magnetic case, as soon as you clip it on to the Action 2, this magnetic case will suddenly disable the inbuilt temperature protection and will let the camera go past the normal point where it overheats.
And this is especially relevant for people in the EU, where they don't have the ability in software to expand the heat limit. Do we know if it also works in the EU?
Yes, as far as I know, Mads is using the EU.
Oh, right,
version.
he's in the EU, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, there's limitations in the EU about the external temperature of an appliance for safety reasons, and it meant that this camera would shut down sooner than if you were in the US.
But it turns out, if you don't want to buy the case or if you want to design your own, all you have to do is put a magnet in it. And if you take a magnet and you put it right there at the top where his finger is pointing, it'll do the same thing as the case does. And if you look at the design of the case is basically insulated. It's not metal. So if anything, the case would make it heat up more. It's not like the case is helping it dissipate more heat, right? So this seems like it would only be positive to do to you.
Blunty, what in the hell is going on here, man? So DJI releases this protective case, which, whatever, it makes it more protected-er. But as you're saying, you don't think it increases the heat dissipation. Then for some reason, the protective case disables the heat protection. What the F? What's going on here? I mean, I don't know why.
Sure.
I don't know. I just want to express my indignance.
Yeah, wants to make sure we know he's not in the EU. He's in the UK.
Well done.
Yeah.
Good point.
So failsafe says you cannot set it to high even in the EU. So this only helps people who are not in the EU, I guess. But it definitely changes the temperature protection. That's the point of this. So
now, does it increase? So hang on. Let's back up then. Let's make sure we've got our facts straight, because as you know, we are a hard-hitting, well-researched news organization. There's the standard temperature threshold, and then in the USA, at least, you can change the setting in the menu to have like a high temperature threshold, which but if you're in the EU, you cannot use the high temperature threshold for CE reasons or whatever. So, do we know? Does this increase the temperature threshold above what we already have in the USA?
I don't know. At this point, I have no idea, because what failsafe is saying doesn't make any sense to me. Because as far as I know, there's not 3 sets, right?
Well,
there's only the EU and there's the US. So
well, theoretically, there could be an even higher threshold, which is not accessible through the software. But then when you put the magnet on here, suddenly there's an even higher threshold.
Yeah, Magtech says high temp mode, but which is what I thought the setting in the software was called.
I agree. So it sounds like that it is giving access to the high temp mode that we freedom-loving Americans already have to people in a part of the world where they might not have had it before. Thank you, Sasha, for the clarification. At post-Brexit, I'm going to have to I've just said EU, which is pretty much all of Europe. And now post-Brexit, Europe and EU are not quite the same thing anymore. So, yeah, I am familiar with the geography of this, of the area. And as Failsafe FPV says, the temperature thing also applies in the UK. So, so we don't know is the takeaway. Exactly what it does to the threshold.
For some reason, it extends the time, but it's not clear how. So, yeah.
Okay.
Because I guess my point here, right, is that if this case is doing something for heat dissipation, right, then the case, like, I don't know, people are saying it protects you from getting burned.
Right.
But if the case can dissipate heat, then it would come into the case and it would still burn you.
Yeah. I mean, we're just guessing, but maybe by having a safe touch point, it lets it dissipate the heat. I don't know. The bottom line is that if you get this, if you're in an area where you don't have access to the higher temperature threshold, if you put a magnet right there, then you will get longer recording. That's the takeaway.
Yes.
And thanks to Madstech for documenting that.
Yeah.
All right. Wonderful. Next up, we have got... Story title 6. We have got an FPV Viking helmet. Okay.
Yes.
What do we want to say about this, Blunty?
I want to say that I want more of this, personally.
More FPV Viking helmets.
Yeah, because I think this is way more exciting than, I don't know, like the 18th random frame of the same size that somebody else made.
Fair enough.
Go do something interesting. Go fucking put motors on a Viking helmet and fly it around. That's my opinion. Like, this is a lot more fun to me.
I want to land it on somebody's head.
Right. Think of all the fun things you could already consider from watching a Viking helmet fly around.
It's flying okay, too? Do we see any FPV flying, or is it only line of sight?
Maybe we need a FEA analysis on this Viking helmet.
What are the resonance characteristics? Chris Rosser hates this. He hates this Viking helmet, clearly. It's wobbling
That's what we should have titled this segment.
Chris Rosser hates this Viking helmet. Yeah. It's pretty adorable, to be honest with you. Alrighty. Slop It thinks that this is a fake channel and the real one is Viking Multimedia. I can't tell if there's some drama there that I'm not aware of, but we're gonna move on. Very cool, Blunty. Just wanted to show that off.
Cool.
Let's go on to something actually useful.
Yeah. So, PIDtoolbox. A lot of folks have used PIDtoolbox in the past.
Wow.
And anybody who's used it knows about some quirks that have been the case in PIDtoolbox.
Yes.
And one of the big ones is, you run MATLAB and you got to have that all updated, but then you've got to use this file. So there's a file in the folder called Blackbox Decode.
Right.
And you've got to move that file in with your other stuff, or you've got to move the other stuff into your main folder, all your logs in there. So you can, wherever your logs are, basically the decode has to be there. So the decode can talk to the log and decrypt it. And it's kind of a hassle. Anytime you make new logs, you got to move them around and stuff. So finally, we've got a new version of PIDtoolbox, and that is no more.
Yes. You could just open the damn files.
Yes, you could just open them, no matter where they are, and it'll do the black box decode on its side, and you don't have to worry about it. So it may not be a huge deal for a lot of people, but especially for new users and people who've already used it, you just don't worry about your logs are now. They can be wherever you are. You click them and they load.
It was super annoying having to manually copy the logs into the folder and having to manually create and having to do, move the blackboxdecode.exe file around. And I've always thought it's a free program worked on for free. And so I didn't, never thought bad of anybody, but it was always seemed like a super oversight that you can't just do file open. And now you can. So if you use PIDtoolbox, get 053 ASAP, I think is the takeaway.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, especially if you're going to do Brian White's basement PID tune method that we covered in a previous one. That new angle mode basement PID tune method.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Okie dokie. Next up, anytime you mention Tesla and the Gigafactory, people's ears perk up. We got a Tesla Gigafactory Fly-through.
Yeah, and just as a heads up, so this is going to be lower quality than you might expect, so that's kind of why it'll look a little bit weird. This was filmed on a screen in the factory reveal, basically, but the new one, the full one, is not out yet. We're still waiting on that one, so we figured we would go ahead and show it because it. But this is pretty cool. It's not a one shot, but it is a lot of cool shots and places nobody would ever be able to get it into.
Yeah, no kidding.
Very cool, very cool.
Ooh, the speed ramps are... I can't decide if I like them or if I hate them. Where are you going to fly your drone that you're not going to get squashed? Because nobody can go in here with all these robots working and shit. There's a giant metal break. Oh, bye-bye. Bye-bye, metal. Wow.
He goes so slow, too, man. He scares me so much.
So
this is Ferdinand Wolf. A lot of people, just because how slow he is, it seems like it was about to go down again. Ferdinand Wolf is the one who filmed this.
Okay.
So we're waiting on he was on with Skynamic, and we're waiting on the final version of that to be released from Tesla.
This is something. So this is from Ferdinand?
Yes.
Oh, I see. They showed it and someone recorded it. I see. Oh, yeah, you can see the screen right there at the bottom. I see. Yeah. It's really something. It's really cool because a lot of times you look at a Cinewhoop shot and you think, a guy with a camera on a pole could have done that. What did the Cinewhoop really bring to the shot? I mean, not always, but sometimes. But in this case, we've got scenarios where I can't think of another way to have gotten this exact shot. The camera going into an area where a human couldn't safely be, and then being able to move around, even something like the Boston Dynamics robot dog or whatever, which would be okay. It's too big. These are shots that really only a Cinewhoop could get, and it's really cool to see that kind of thing.
Some of these, especially with the arms, later he flies over an acid vat.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those are very Yeah, shots you just can't get, and there's no way to get through that tunnel and to go through all the places. And yeah, very cool. Yeah, like this is an acid vat. Like,
don't freaking drop your drone in that, right?
Yeah, definitely do not want to do that. So,
and so cool, so cool that they let him fly here. Such high stakes, obviously. Like, you don't want your drone. I don't know what they're spraying there, but you don't want your drone to get ruined and lose your shot. Very cool. I'm just like watching this at this point. Like,
I mean, it's really awesome.
It's really awesome. Ferdinand Wolf he's a creative director for DJI, isn't he?
I'm not 100% sure about that.
I think he is. We interviewed him in Flow State.
Okay. I know this was before the opening, so this is like a grand opening kind of thing. So that's why I think they're able to get a lot of these shots. But yeah, it's very awesome to see.
No data. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. I it's always interesting when somebody does a Cinewhoop shot, like how they set it up and how they edit it, what they decide to show. In a case like this, there is no way you're going to get a oneer of everything you need to show. So this is so many shots put together, and just the planning, and it's just insane. Just insane. So cool. Very good stuff. Wesley Vardy says Ferdinand flies ExpressLRS on his Cine gear.
Yeah, License to Drive also says it's going to blow a lot of minds, and I would agree. This is one of those things that's going to get a lot of views, I would assume, when they put it out and they start using it for promotional material. So
yeah, it makes me think of those shots are some of my favorites. The one in the opening too, the faster shots make me wonder if he's using a 5-inch. It reminds me of some of the shots that David Fincher has done as a director, but he does the shots CG. And nowadays you can just do them with a.
Yeah, he said he used various Cinewhoops and 5-inch drones in there. So.
Crazy, really cool stuff. Kudos to Ferdinand Wolf and Tesla. So really cool. Alrighty. Well, we got another movie related thing, and I got to tell you, Blunty. Hang on. I got to do the title. Sorry, I normally do the titles beforehand, but I don't know. I was distracted today. So I watched this featurette, the new movie Ambulance. Okay, Vanover was a pilot, directed by Michael Bay. Vanover was a pilot on it, flew in a rig, and there's this featurette they put out, this little behind the scenes thing, which talks like it's so cool to see, director of photography and then actors, Jake Gyllenhaal talking about, and then there's Vanover talking about flying FPV. I watched it. I showed it to Issa. I was like, Issa, check, you got to see this. FPV has arrived. I hate to say it, but I don't think we can show it.
Yeah, I put it in chat a few times. If people want to check it out, you can definitely go watch it. But it is from the Universal YouTube account. So I think if there's somebody who's going to flag us, yeah, Universal's up there on the list.
Well, and you're tempted to be like, well, this isn't the movie. It's just a little featurette. Surely they want people sharing it. But I just cannot take a chance on getting a copyright strike. Unfortunately, that's how the world is right now. And so we're going to put a link to it. You guys should definitely go see it. Even if you're not interested in the movie or anything, it's so, like, I've been watching, like, DVD behind the scenes things since DVDs were a thing. Sorry, kids, DVDs aren't a thing anymore. And, like, seeing these little behind the scenes, like the actors talking about the movie and the stunts, and to see one of those about FPV, like Michael Bay reaches out and he's like, he's talking to Vanover about the shot. And he like taps Vanover on the shoulder. And I'm like, my God, I know that guy.
Yeah,
he flies FPV. It is really cool.
It is really cool, man. And
it's really cool.
Yeah, they're explaining FPV to people who are watching the featurette and explaining how they can get the shots. And it's cool too because he says specifically in there, I want to make sure that we use the latest technology and we always have that. And so for this, it's going to be FPV, and I don't know. It's just neat to see that. So.
Should also say the shots that Vanover gets in that movie are legitimately badass. And I say that having seen, like, I've seen Johnny FPV shots in Red Notice, right? I've seen, not to take anything away from anybody else, but some of the shots that, like the shot where he flies under the jumping police car, thinking about what it must have taken to time that shot and the risk, and just Vanover is absolutely up there with any other pilot in the world after seeing his, I mean, not like you didn't already know that, but after seeing his work in this film, just like, damn, dude, what can't you do? So, very exciting. All right. Well, sadly, we can't show it as much as I would love to, but there you go. We are going to move on. Anything else to say about that, Blunty?
No, that makes sense. Use the second. Let's start with the second video on the next thing, by the way.
Okay, let's see here.
So next up,
the second one, we're going to take a show.
Yeah, next up we're going to take a look at the Medlin drone head tracker. It's a gimbal that basically it's a head tracking gimbal, and we've seen some of those before,
right?
Mainly for like wing cameras and things, similar to what we're seeing in the video right now. But basically, this is a universal tracking system meant to kind of go on anything and be universal, kind of snap in anything, work with anything, and plug into any system is the idea behind it. So it can kind of be universal, and you can use it on all your quads with similar ways and systems, and it mounts with your GoPro or your other camera so that they can look together. And essentially the idea behind the head tracker is, when you're flying around and you need to follow a target, let's say you're orbiting around somebody and maybe you're up and down a little bit or tilting to come in and out, you can keep your head aimed at the target, and you can maintain that look at the target even with your GoPro while you're kind of bobbing back and forth to come in and out, and maybe you're not perfect, right? Or maybe something else is going on, or maybe there's wind, or you have to move for the shot, right? So
now I want to talk about, so I'm sort of the curmudgeon, I think, I usually hate everything that's new and different and just wish everyone would not invent anything ever. and the reason that head trackers are typically not used on FPV drones is that on an FPV drone, the relationship between the camera angle and the thrust vector, if it changes, then the way that you fly the drone fundamentally changes. And you can experience this if you normally fly at 20 degrees of up tilt, put your camera at 45 degrees of up tilt and go fly. And suddenly everything about the way the throttle moves the quad and everything about the way you turn is changed. And that's only a single axis, the pitch axis. To then put the camera on yaw and potentially roll, you've now completely decoupled the thrust from the actual orientation of the camera, and it makes it very hard to fly. And I would have said you can't really fly it that way, but this guy has some videos up where he seems to be doing relatively controlled and, flight while the head tracker is sort of tracking up, down, left, right. So maybe it's time for me to shut up and acknowledge that this is the future. I don't know.
Yeah. So what we're looking at, what the video here I've got pulled up is Nurk's video. So he sent it to Nurk, and Nurk went through it and kind of tried to see like, hey, is this how does this work, and can you fly with it, and what are the advantages and disadvantages? And something he said is, I think he was kind of similar to you. He's like, yeah, there have been solutions like this, but I'm not really sure what the point of it is. And he's like, and then I put it on and started looking up at the tree and then followed the tree, and then I was like going through a gap and I looked down to see the gap that I was going to dive, and then tilted my head as I came down into the gap. And like you can see there, like
it feels like I would be very interested to try to fly this, because I've flown airplanes with head trackers, but I haven't flown a multi-rotor with a head tracker ever. And like you can see Nurk, as he raises and lowers his head, the camera, moves up and down. I'd be very interested what that does to your brain as you're trying to fly. And like normally you pitch back a little bit before you throttle up to climb. But if you raise your head, it's going to feel like you pitched back when you didn't.
Yes,
I don't know.
and that's so that's something they talk a little bit about. And actually, they try in one of their shots, they try going backwards by like tilting their head so that the angle is better for backwards flight and such, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're almost kind of gaming it, and as long as you're cognizant of like the position your head is in, versus the angle of the camera on your drone, relative. It seems like you can get used to it. So like if you're in the center, then I know where I'm looking and I can kind of angle it. And then if I look up, then I know that I have to tilt more and that sort of thing. So a license to drive mentions that it might be similar to driving a car because your head isn't fixed in one position, but I would say your car vectors itself. Right. So your car is on a road and the road is the vectoring. So it's almost like if you had to pick up and down on the road while you were tilting your head might be the difference there. Yeah. But then somebody else in the chat, I think I just lost it, said it's similar to flying a real plane, which is true.
Yeah. It's I think you would have to have a lot of experience flying at various up tilt angles. Yes. Because I've said that a head tracking gimbal I wouldn't want, but like I could imagine having 2 different up tilts on a switch, because I can fly at 35 degrees and I can fly at 45 degrees. So what if we could, flip a switch and just have the camera pop from one to the other, and then you could adjust. And so maybe that's kind of mentally what's going on here. As you move your head, you're kind of mentally adjusting. It still seems like it would be easy to get yourself in trouble, but it's an interesting setup.
It's interesting too, because like it's a tool for filming, right? I think that's where like it's worth learning possibly, so that you can really get some of these shots too. So
yep. And if he hadn't released it, he could really blow some people's mind, because you'd be like looking up, and you'd be like, wait, what? Like when the cheater cam first came out, and people were doing backwards flying.
I wonder if there's some weird way as well, like if you could get into the weeds in this and like tether it to like your angle correction or something, because a lot of people talk about not flying angle mode, right, when you're doing cinematic flight, because you can't keep the camera angled. But what if your drone was correcting, but your camera wasn't, and your camera was locked, right? That might be interesting.
Yeah, Betaflight can do that. Betaflight has the ability to do cam stab, I think it's called, where it counters the roll and pitch axis to a servo. They just want you to do it with your head, I think. Anyway, very cool stuff, and there's linked down in the video description if you are interested in checking it out. Next up, we are going to cover my friends Rotor Riot, and another one of their crazy little projects, the Rotor Riot Airfoil on a drone, or ring drone. What do you think of this video, Blunty?
It's interesting. I'm not sure how far the concept will go. Like, I'm not sure like how good of an idea the ring drone actually is, right? It seems like an interesting idea, but I feel like something Sean says is like, hey, this is the first time we've ever tried this. So like there's probably, it flies okay. So that means that maybe there's a lot of room on the top end to like optimize and make it proper for the ring drone. But what I thought was interesting, maybe something we could conjecture on, is that at the very beginning of this video, Ladrib says, this is something they've been working on at Redcat. And so when you look at that drone, it does not to me look like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the application that Redcat would be developing a drone like this for, right?
Well, it reminds me of the mini Qubit that I flew, which was a little quadcopter with 2 cameras, one front facing and one upward facing, and little magnetic wings that attached to it, and it could transition to forward flight, and you'd switch cameras. And there's no doubt that having any kind of lifting surface did increase the ability of the drone to fly in that. Because, of course, if you pitch over to 90 degrees up tilt, you just fall. And I tried it both with and without the wings, and they were making a difference. A lot of people in the comments of this video were commenting that if it's an airfoil, then if it's a circle, it's not generating a net lift. But it doesn't have to be an airfoil to just have sort of, just have air bounce off it and create some amount of lift.
My thought was they need another prop or 3 to spin it, because my understanding of these rings was that when you spin the rings, that's when they maintain stability. Like when I was a kid, you could get those like plastic rings that you take with your hand and you spin and throw, and they glide through the air because they're spinning. So I don't know. My thought would be if you could find a way to make the spin through the air, maybe you get some benefit. But then I don't know how well that would control it fly. So.
Yeah, it's hard to know what advantage this is giving. I mean, if you want a lifting surface, then just having 2 extra wings two extra little just fins to give you some lift, whereas this ring, I mean, there's no doubt that the sides are not creating lift. So what is the purpose of the sides, I guess, is the question. Even XJet came out and commented. When you get XJet to comment, you know you got some interesting ideas at least. I guess it keeps it lifting even when you roll over. Weird. It's kind of weird. It's clever. It's kind of weird. I'm not sure there's a reason. You always have to have people doing crazy things that don't have an obvious reason until you find something interesting. Abraham says vertical arm and box frames have been around forever. This feels really similar. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is true. They also had some CG issues, I think, having the CG too far behind or in front of... No. CG in front of the... Oh, I don't remember. What's the rule?
I think it would be too far forward.
Too far forward, yeah.
Yeah, because you're trying to do this with it instead of like a pendulum, like you'd expect.
Right. Shinobi FPV wants us to comment on the head tracker. Shinobi FPV, thank you for a $5 super chat. Shinobi wants to show this setup that he made for the head tracker, which is you basically stand on this pad, I guess. Interesting. And then it controls the direction that the gimbal goes, I guess. Interesting. Is it pressure sensitive? Really cool, Shinobi. Thank you for sharing that. Alrighty. You can always rely on Sean to come up with some weird shit. That's for sure.
True.
Okay. Next up, we got an event, Blunty. Always like to let people know about events that are coming up.
Yeah, a couple of events. These are going to be two we've already talked about, but just to remind you, because they're coming up in this next month. So we've got the Ice Storm Drone Racing Competition by MultiGP, and that is April the 29th through May the 1st, and that's going to be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So hopefully you already know about that if you're going, but maybe if you didn't, you can still sign up and get in there. There are 5-inch and tiny trainer races, and there's 25 grand in prize pools between all the classes. So
nice. And then we've also got this one in your home state.
We've got Whoop Wars Battleground, which is a giant whoop race going on from April the 23rd to April the 25th, and that is going to be in Denver. And yeah, that's going to be 64 pilot racing, whoop racing in Denver. So it should be pretty exciting.
Alrighty, coming up at the end of April. Very nice. Okay, next we're going to do a segment we like to call, you actually came up with this, I shouldn't say we, but I do like to call it that. It's barely news. Items that we thought were interesting enough to mention, but not so interesting that they would make their entire news item all their own. And, if there's one thing I've learned, Blunty, it's that when dogs being fed with drones, remember the sausage, the dog rescued with a sausage hung from a drone? Man, that's just gold. So, strangely, there's another story of dogs being fed with a drone.
Yeah, so basically there was the La Palma volcano, the Spanish island of La Palma. Basically there was a giant lava flow, and the whole area got too hot for anyone to fly into. And so essentially these dogs got stranded, and there wasn't any way to get people there because it was too hot to literally fly people there. And so this team was like, well, we got to do something. So they were able to fly drones up there, and they've got basically a veterinarian telling them, because these dogs are pretty malnourished, what to feed them and how much. And they fly the drones over there. They drop them for the dogs, and the dogs get to eat. And they're dropping them daily to keep these dogs fed while this is going on, and they can't get up there. So it's kind of cool.
Wow, poor dogs. Drones save the day again. What can't drones do? My goodness. Let's we got something drones are doing coming up in just a second, but before we do that, there's a new update on a law in Washington State, and this is weird because, Blunty, Well, usually when we talk about drone registration and drone regulation, we're talking about federal regulations. But in this case, it looks like Washington State is going to require you register the drones with the state DOT.
Yes, so I'm not sure if this has happened in any other states. Maybe somebody can tell us if it has. But this April 1st, which is a couple days from now, if you're in Washington State, the Department of Transportation in Washington State now requires you to pay a $15 yearly registration in addition to your FAA registration if you're doing commercial work with your drone. So.
Oh, yeah. This is weird because on the one hand, we know that there's a federal non-preemption which says that only the federal government may and the FAA may regulate the airspace. And that comes into play when, for example, a local state or city will say, you can't fly drones in our parks. And theoretically, the FAA should come in and say, well, you can't do that. You can prohibit takeoff and landing because that involves the ground, but the airspace is ours. So it's a little weird here, but it doesn't seem, and I'm not a lawyer, but it doesn't seem like this steps on non-preemption. Requiring you to register the drone to possess it is what the state is doing, or not necessarily regulating the airspace, or are they? I mean, I don't know. You're not a lawyer either.
I think they're regulating commercial operations with the device. So I don't know how that all plays out, or how that will all work. So
interesting. I mean, if they,
I think this may be something that will end up going to court.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is not a clear cut. I guess if what they're regulating is your ability to fly the drone in the air, that's the FAA. And of course, that being said, the FAA has not been super aggressive about actually stepping up and challenging these rules when they come out. But it's nice to know that you're right, I guess. But in this case, it's unclear what exactly they are prohibiting if you don't register the drone. And so it's unclear whether they're actually stepping on that non-preemption. But if you're in Washington, you need to at least know that this is happening.
Yeah. Let's see. Chad Rains FPV says, I live in Seattle. How can I legally challenge this JB? So I would say probably one of the good resources to go to is the UAS Law and News group on Facebook. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you'll see posts there about this if they're not posts already about this. And that's where I would imagine you'll see some kind of organization. Vic Moss normally takes up a lot of this kind of stuff and tries to get with local groups and tries to fight a lot of this stuff. So I would guess that's where the similar thing is going to come, or that's at least who I would start to look to talk to. So,
yeah. All righty. And then lastly, Blunty, in It's Barely News, I've been hearing a lot of talk, and I know we usually try to stay out of politics, but we specifically do touch on drone-related politics. And I've been hearing a lot of talk out of Ukraine about drones being used in the effort there, and not just military drones, but consumer drones. Some people talking about flying FPV drones, some people talking about flying DJI drones. And I sent a bunch people keep submitting these stories. And I feel like there's something here to talk about. Although you have a little bit of an objection that I feel like we should acknowledge before we talk about it.
Sure. I mean, I just don't feel like these are the kind of stories that I feel like don't have a lot of substance. I mean, if you want me to say that, like, I don't know, like, these are things that are hard to verify. And in a time where people want a lot of good information about a war that they want to be on the good side of, it's very easy to post stories that aren't fully verified, that you might vet harder in times of not war.
Absolutely. Absolutely valid. In fact, I would start with one of these first ones as an example of the sort of difficulty of getting accurate information. There's been a statement that DJI Aeroscope was being used by the Russian military. There was a claim that DJI specifically shut down Ukrainian Aeroscope so they couldn't use it, and basically implied that DJI was supporting Russia against Ukraine. Then DJI denied it. And this is one of those stories that, who knows the truth? We don't. But here's what I think is interesting and worthy of talking about. I absolutely believe that both Russia and Ukrainian soldiers are using DJI hobby drones in the field. Like, I don't have proof of that. I just am so sure that's true.
Yes.
Right?
I definitely agree with that. Yes.
And it's so interesting, and then that these hobby tools are so useful that professional militaries with access to professional military technology still find a hobby drone that you can buy at Best Buy to be effective. And that's just really as profound that these toys that we're playing with have that capability.
Yeah. It seems to be a large combination of like military and consumer and hobby built and kind of basically whatever anybody can get their hands on, in these situations, it seems like too.
Yeah.
So.
And then you end up with this aeroscope technology, which is designed to protect commercial institutions, government institutions from hobbyist drones, basically to stop people from flying drugs into your prison or stop people from flying over your sporting event. And then if you're going to use a hobby drone to do military reconnaissance, or I've even heard unverified stories, but I've heard stories of them being used to drop grenades or explosives. At that point, now you have a hobbyist countermeasure technology that isn't built to military standards and is being used in that way. It's a strange, strange world that we're living in. We also have some reports here, and again, it's difficult to know what's true, but it is plausible. We have reports here that there are like FPV drone pilots who are working and using FPV drones for these things. And here they specifically talk about soldiers equipped with night vision goggles, sniper rifles, and drones capable of dropping small 1.5 kilogram bombs. And we got this drone here. Doesn't look like an FPV drone. Looks like and although it's impossible to know the actual truth of this, it is not implausible that it's true.
Sure.
It's very interesting. Here's a story about this drone here. This guy was on Fox Business, I think, one of these guys. This stuff is coming. This stuff is coming.
Yeah, I think regardless of how the actual facts land in this stuff, a lot of the thing people are going to see from this is the first major conflict that's been fought with drones. That has had drones as a large major part of it because the technology has advanced so much in both the hobbyists and the commercial spaces. So, it's difficult because, like we talked about, if you can't get that good of information, or you're getting different parts of different sides, and people are blaming large companies, and there are these systems used to find people, and there's so many good and bad stories. It's hard to know what the actual shakeout will be. What the takeaway people will see from this is. Because obviously the drones are going to be needed as countermeasures because the bad people are going to decide not to use drones, so that's going to be a thing for a long time.
Right.
And in this case, it seems like the hobbyist drones have been a huge help and success. So I don't know. It's hard to know.
And there are people who see this and say, well, this is not going to help our case with the FAA. When the FAA sees a story about someone using consumer drones to weaponize them against military, people think the FAA will be like, oh, no. But here's the thing, guys. I've been saying since remote ID started to become a thing, pretty much, that the motivation here is not just the Jeff Bezos and the Elon Musks of the world. It's not just commercial interests, it is security interests. That Department of Homeland Security and other defense sort of organizations are concerned about these exact capabilities that people are talking about in Ukraine. So the FAA already has been freaking out about this for the last 2 years, and not just the FAA, but the DHS and other organizations that motivate them. So you actually are the one who just sort of woke up. If you looked at this and you said, wow, this is new information, well, this is really going to freak the FAA out. No, they were already freaked out. You're the one who is actually just waking up, unfortunately. And this is what I've been talking about for the last 2 years when I've been saying that this is the true motivation, not I'm sure the commercial interests are in there too, but this is the true motivation for remote ID and the other regulations that have come down the pike. So the good news, I guess, is that it's not going to get any worse because of this.
Yeah,
it was already this bad.
I don't think it will get any worse. I think this is where this is like the first, we've talked before about like, hey, there's some dude doing something stupid with the drone, and that's in the news. And for me, that doesn't really move the dial on public opinion. This is the kind of thing that moves the dial on public opinion. This is where like major groups of people will, like you said, wake up and see that like, hey, this is happening and this is possible and everybody has this technology. And yeah, like I said, I just don't know how it will shake out, whether the overall sentiment will be better or worse, or whether much will change because of this. Right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's very interesting to see where it goes. But I feel like it certainly has to be acknowledged. And that's why I wanted to do this segment. Nothing about this is, no one who's in the world of FPV looks at these stories and says, oh, you could drop something from a drone. We've been doing that for years. Sure, drones are useful for various things, including reconnaissance and so forth. But to see that all playing out in such a visible way on such a world stage, I think has to be acknowledged as at least a watershed moment in some way. So, alrighty. Well, we'll see what comes of that. We don't know. Yeah. One last thing we got today in the It's Barely... Is this It's Barely News? I think it is, right?
No, this is like I'm going to call this like the rant, but it's not ranty because I don't really have a...
All right, we're going to call it a rant.
Strong rant? Yeah, but this is more like let's talk about some drama and see what people think, I guess, is more my opinion. So, Farouk FPV, many people know for Spang style.
Spang.
And so he was with T-Motor for a while. A couple guys were, and they left T-Motor for Axis, right? I think we've talked about this before.
Axis Flying, yeah.
Yeah. So today, Farouk decided to drum up some drama. He's complaining about the new T-Motor props. New T-Motor props are selling basically another line of props, the 49436 prop, and that is considered a juicy Spang prop, and they're advertising them as Spang. And so he thinks that is a problem because he's the one who brought them Spang and helped them develop them. And he thinks he should keep that name to himself and that they should be better than to do that. And so I wonder what people think about that and what people's opinions are on that.
Farouk.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Don't. I didn't mean today, Lexi. I meant tomorrow. Sorry. I've a call scheduled with Lexi about Airspeeder. She's trying to call me. Sorry. Hang on one second. I'm sorry. I see. I said Wednesday. She's one day ahead of me, isn't she? Anyway, never mind. So, of all the things in the world of FPV that I have heard of big evil corporations stealing from little pilots, and there I've heard a lot of stories that we're not going to go back over of that happening. Stealing the name Spang, I don't know. The thing is, though, he worked with them to develop this prop. Is that true? Did he work with them to develop this prop?
Develop similar props. So I don't know if it's this exact prop because he left. I don't know, we don't know where in production it was, but basically he's saying that they didn't work with him to release this,
So arguably he worked with them to develop props. And for the record, having worked, here's how it works when a pilot works with a manufacturer to develop a prop or something, is the pilot usually gives some specifications, like I'd like it to be a 4.9 by 3, and here I care about responsiveness or whatever. Then the manufacturer makes samples and sends them to him, and the pilot tries them and gives feedback, and they go back and forth. But like, don't kid yourself. The manufacturer has a massive contribution because generally the pilot is not a motor designer or a prop designer. So the pilot will say, I want responsiveness. I want these characteristics, but then it's up to the prop designer or the motor designer or whoever to actually deliver them. So he worked with them, and then when Axis Flying left, he went with Axis, as far as we can tell. And then they went ahead and they continued to develop and release the prop and sold it as the Spang prop. So is he mad about them taking the name Spang, or is he mad about them, the work that he put in with them?
I think he's mad that people associate him with Spang, and they see the props, and he didn't approve them and work with them and make sure they were good for Spang. That's my takeaway from his many comments under this post.
So he's the only one who has the right to sort of tag something as being Spang approved.
That's what he seems to think. He says, yeah, the only problem is to lie to customers. I just make the post to say that and say I don't participate on this project.
But he said
the name will be used, but it's in my right to make a post to clarify the situation before people ask me anything on this props.
But it doesn't say Farouk FPV prop, right? It says Spang prop.
That's correct.
So
yes.
like Johnny FPV came up with like Juicy Style. He was one of the developers, one of the main people associated with Juicy Style. So then somebody puts out a prop that says it's a Juicy Style prop. It just means it's good for that style of flying. It doesn't necessarily mean he personally approved it.
Which this prop, it does also say Juicy, Spang. So,
well, so first of all, marketing is all bullshit anyway. It's Juicy Spang style. Oh, okay. That just means Spang is popular, and it's a 4.9-inch prop. I hate to say it, Farouk, but I doubt that even if you have a legitimate claim that you are the only one who can use Spang, which is not true. I mean, even if Farouk single-handedly invented the style of Spang, someone else could come along and fly Spang style and say, I'm flying Spang style. And people do. So he doesn't own Spang, and he's not the only person who can make or bless a Spang-related product. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, agree. If it said Farouk FPV, then he'd have a case. Obviously.
Whitmead says, why are you saying Spang? Because I don't like saying Spang, or whatever you think I should say.
Isn't it
it's
Spang?
Basically, it's Spang, right? So
yeah.
Stick banging, but so I'm not going to say Sabang.
Right. Spang. Right. Sabang. Spang. It's Sabang. Sabang. Spang. Oh my God. Is it Espang? Spang? Anyway, I'm sure now I've offended people by saying it wrong.
All right.
Farouk, I mean, make a post if you want, but I think you got to let this one go. Other people are going to make Spang-related products and claim that they're good for Spang, and it's all a bunch of marketing bullshit anyway. Like, just between you and me, Blunty, the idea that there's this prop that is specifically good for Spang is also a lot of bullshit. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, yeah. I mean, other than general rules about props, right? Yeah, you're not going to... I don't imagine there's going to be some magic shape of a prop that's going to fix it.
This prop is good for Spang. Is it 4.9 inch, right? That's all it... Okay, anyway. No. Anyway.
All right.
There you go.
Real quick, Mr. Fowl and Ghost Branch want to let us know that the FPV sims are on sale today on Steam. So if you're looking for any FPV sim, you might go check Steam. I know DCL was on sale earlier. Liftoff, Uncrashed, and FPV Air 2, though I think we had a bad experience with that one. So
yeah. Alrighty. Well, good luck, Farouk. Good luck. Welcome to FPV. Congratulations. You've made it. Someone ripped you off. Get on with your life.
Sometimes you spang and sometimes you get spanged.
I mean, I can't. I mean, it's not even like T-Motor just came out of the blue. They were working with you. I don't know what happened, but Axis Flying left T-Motor. The people left Axis Flying left T-Motor and formed Axis Flying, and you went with them. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, like, I don't know the details, but you were working with T-Motor. You said to T-Motor, hey, let's make a prop. And T-Motor's like, sure. And they got halfway through designing the prop. And then you were like, you know what? I'm going to go with this other company. And I don't know why you made that decision or whether it was a moral decision. But like, I certainly could imagine a scenario where T-Motor's like, hey, bro, what about this prop we were developing? Fine. Okay. We're going to make it ourselves. It's not like they just came out of the blue and stole your idea.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Maybe they should call it spang instead of sabang. Put a P in there.
Okay, let's wrap up. We've ranted for 10 minutes about this. Let's wrap up.
Right.
We've got a couple of super chats. Mike Speedy FPV, thanks for £5. Shinobi FPV, thanks for another $5 Canadian, and Miguel T, thanks for $5. What Betaflight settings can cause the flight controller and ESC to not communicate? The motor protocol. Did you set the motor protocol? Presumably you did, Miguel, but that's what could do it. Yeah. Well, better, Miguel, probably, since this isn't a Q&A stream, better to email me to discuss. That's what I would suggest. Okay. What else, Blunty? What do we got to do?
We got to let people know to go down there and hit the subscribe button.
And the like
that's
button.
Important. And the
Yes.
like button? Yeah. Also, if you don't mind, go check me out at itsblunty.com. That's always helpful.
Absolutely.
Check me out over there. I've got a Patreon and some troubleshooting. If you're interested in any of that stuff, I do some one-on-one paid troubleshooting if you want to buy my time. So you're welcome to do that. As well, we've got a Joshua Bardwell Clips channel. If you want to go check out any of the clips from this show or some of the other streams you do, those show up there on the Clips channel. So.
Awesome. We will see you guys next week as well, and with more news. But that's gonna do it for now. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Thank you, Blunty. Happy flying, everybody.
Later, guys.